being recorded.
And Melanie of Melanie Author Consulting, she'll be one of our experts as well. So Melanie?
Thanks, Ahmad. Oh, there I am. Now you can all see me. Thank goodness. I wanted to echo Josh's greetings and thanks. This is a really exciting project to be involved with. The grants and the specific projects that you're all working on are speak to my passion for enhancing business engagement. So I'm really pleased to be working on that. And we did have a great session in Atlanta. It was my pleasure to be there. I enjoyed meeting folks. Just a quick aside for you guys out there, it's so unusual to have a conference actually get launched, and this one turned out to be a phenomenon. There were 400 people there from many, many different states. Some of you on the phone were there as well, and it was just a fabulous event. So hello, good afternoon. I'm happy to be here. My name is Melanie Arthur. I have my own consulting business, but as many of you know, I'm affiliated with the team of consultants that organize ourselves as Greg Newton Associates. And I've been affiliated with Greg for almost 15 years as a consultant, and then had the great pleasure of working with him for 4 or 5 years before that when I was in the state agency. So I'm going to give you a quick heads up on some of the ways that I might possibly contribute to your projects, and in addition to what social policy research has listed here for my areas, staff BSR training, strategy, and program design. I'm just going to add a little bit of detail to that. And what I've selected to present is based on a review of your grants, and within those grants, some of the needs you've identified, and then also some of the needs that I think the analysis of the grants have identified some of the gaps. So a little bit about my background. I think one of my strengths is I have what we like to call field experience. I worked in workforce development at a state agency level for 8 years, and then followed that with what I've been doing now for 15 years as a consultant to state and local boards, state and local agencies. My consulting practice has covered virtually every program in the workforce development arena, and every level of the structure within the workforce area. So, and many of you, I've worked and trained in many of your states, so I have experience in probably at least 40, if not more, states. So let me go through sort of 4 possible areas of assistance with a little bit of detail of what that assistance might mean. This includes operations, processes, marketing and outreach, and of course training. So in the operations area, this is for those of you whose projects include kind of organizational development, clarifying the roles for your business service representative teams and related functions to those teams, having good structures for how the business service representatives sit within your organization, where they sit, kind of the hierarchical structure there, developing them into teams, both the internal version of that and the relationship and communication within the system, developing new products and services or continuing improvement on some of the products and services that you have, and also development of policies and procedures. So that's the operational area. This, which overlaps with the processes area that I might be able to assist you with. These are really the how-tos for service delivery, streamlining or re-engaging how you actually are organized to deliver, launching new services. And this would be both for what I call business services and employer services. So the process area of possible consulting also overlaps with this third area, marketing and research. Some of you may know I was the director of marketing and communications in Massachusetts at the state agency there for 6 years. And it was an unusual position. There weren't many of us, but I had great pleasure. I learned the system, and I really figured out how unique marketing is within sort of the public/nonprofit sector. So in the marketing and outreach area, I could help with strategies and plans, outreach methods and tools and techniques. And then then the fourth area is the one that I think we've talked about on a webinar previously, and that's staff training. I'll just remind you that there are 13 modules of training out online, and they're available through the training bucket on the top navigation at the Enhancing Business Engagement site. That's Business Engagement Workforce 31.org or com. Someone always has to remind me on that. And in addition, with that curriculum, I'm also able to customize curriculum that you may have stuff that you want updated. You may want to take a look at what's available and customize it to your state. So I would say, and my time is up, so I would say that was that's kind of an overview of where I see the possibilities of me being able to make contributions to your Enhancing Business Engagement projects. And I'm done.
Well, great. Thank you, Melanie. And I just realized that I did not announce what Melanie's expertise is in which she'll be taking appointments for. Her expertise is in, as she mentioned, BSR training, strategy, and program design. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, next we go to Rob Gamble, and Rob is from the Bay Area, so I know Rob fairly well, so welcome, Rob. I see that on your picture here you have a potential and future major leaguer, so it's a great picture. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us. And Rob is, thanks for joining us. I'll leave it there. Excuse me.
So, despite the picture, that is the Sunnyvale Red Sox, and that is their star pitcher, shortstop, and catcher. Anyway, my name is Rob Gamble, and some of you may have run into me in the past. I've worked with the Department of Labor as a senior consultant to them on rapid response and business engagement for probably the last 15 years. Currently, I am very active in the business engagement world. To that fact, I am actually, for the next 44 days, the acting dean of workforce and business engagement for a community college here in the Bay Area. I have a very interesting approach to business engagement, business services, because I come to it from having been an active rapid responder I'm still doing it with some of my clients. And at some point early on in what I was doing in rapid response, it occurred to me that what we were really providing here was a business service, and what we needed to do was take that service and make it relevant across the business cycle, so that when we went out and talked with businesses, because in a lot of cases, this is true in states and WID, some of the most active people you have, the people who have the most contact with business, are actually the rapid response group. They're the ones that are often out there meeting with businesses on a more regular basis than a lot of other people inside of the organization. And a way to take those relationships and grow them across the business cycle. So you might meet an organization or an individual when a business is in a down cycle through rapid response, but nothing is static, nothing stays the same. Businesses rise back up, times reverse, or those people that were with a company that went down now move on to a company that's on the way up, and that relationship that you build lasts. So the particular enterprises may not, but the individuals do. And out of that, we began to build, here on the West Coast, I worked with workforce boards here, and later on with community colleges and workforce boards, a system that built a long-term establishment, a long-term set of relationships that allowed us to work with them no matter where they were and what their need was. The topics I've been given to talk to you about, and I'm going to talk about them in a very specific order, are labor market intelligence as opposed to labor market information. And I think that, even though later on I'm going to tell you that I think we make a lot of distinctions that we don't need to make, I think that is a distinction that's important to us. Collaboration and building the partnership, which is critical in this day and age, with funding being the way it is and the dynamics of the economy being the way it is, it's very unlikely that any of us will ever work for an organization again that's able to handle a project soup to nuts. It's just not going to happen anymore. In business, it's very interesting. I'm working on, there's a round of grants out right now that is a collaboration between the Department of Labor and Education. And on the high-tech end, we're working with a number of very large national businesses, Cisco, NetApp, a couple of others, and they came to us together, and they refer to it as co-opetition. There are places where they are in competition with each other for market, but there are other places where they understand the need to cooperate. One of them, interestingly, is workforce. So that's around collaboration. I'll talk briefly about that. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about developing program design, and I put that last for a real specific reason. I think if you do the labor market information and the collaboration part well, program design will come to you nearly complete out of those two activities. Under labor market information, I ran a program and developed it here on in the West Coast in the Silicon Valley area called LMI Plus, Labor Market Information Plus. And the idea behind it was, I know as states you all have labor market divisions and you have really strong qualitative data, where the workforce is going, using the models that DLS gives us, the kinds of things that the newspaper publishes. And those are important, and I think it's a really good leveraging point for any workforce organization to be the source of that information. Information has power. In the old days, it was that, if you watch Mad Men, it was keeping that information close to your vest. If you watch, if you kind of look at the world now with LinkedIn and Twitter and all those, and Facebook, what value of information is how well can you disseminate that information? How well can you get it out? The other thing is how well can you add value to that information? And I think that's an area that states and workforce boards can really make a name for themselves. It's taking that raw information, so looking at a particular, there's a growth spike in some particular industry cluster or some particular job, and saying, how can we find out what that spike really means? What are the hiring trends? Where is the industry going? What are the needs are? Being able to add sort of the qualitative data to it. We use something called an ethnographic model. It's, Margaret Mead going off and living in the forest with the tribes. But what we did is sent people out and lived with the businesses to find out what they were really up to. Through that, we built really strong relationships with the business. We went in not telling them what we had to give, but we went in asking them what we needed to know. We based it on a series of questions we developed over time that delivered information back to our workforce system, but also gave them an opportunity to really tell their stories to us that would give us enough information to build strong programs. But before that program had to start, we had to enhance the relationship and build really good collaboration. Nowadays, I think workforce boards and the community college system, both sort of in the law, in the movement, it's something, we hardly are ever mentioned in separate sentences anymore. It's an area that we really have to build strong relationships back with. It's not necessarily an area that we're comfortable with, but I think the workforce side of the game is better prepared to build those bridges than the colleges are. The academic world is a very specific one. There, it's often, things like the business engagement thing are often done because there's a feeling that we're somewhat uncomfortable about getting out and meeting businesses, but we're outright fanatics about business engagement compared to colleges. So it's something we can bring to the partnership with them that strengthens us both. But there are other people, there are other organizations that are just not, obviously they're all states, so the relationship with the WIBs and the One Stop, building strong collaborations with other federal partners, the NEPs. One of the ones that there's a lot of new movement around is working with the Department of Agriculture. But I've worked with WIBs and states across the country on how to build really strong partnerships with their education and other federal partners. And then finally, I think program design and some of the coolest things I've seen, both that I've been able to do myself or that have been built around the country, have grown out of the first two partners. Really knowing your economy, knowing what your labor market information is, knowing what's actionable information, things you can move on, what's true on the street, and what your workforce capacity is, having strong partnerships that you can link people together where you can be the node in the center to make projects happen, often build the most interesting projects. I've worked with workforce boards and industry groups, mostly in the Bay Area in this case, to build some of the most amazing programs I've ever seen that started from a grain of thought in one group where we were able to take it, okay, these guys think they need this, we'll take it across the street and talk to these guys, maybe there's a match there, maybe we can build something, and amazing programs are built out of it. There's a program that went nationwide called the Genentech Model Biotechnology Training. That started from a short conversation with 3 people, expanded to grants that covered over $5 million in the Bay Area, and then ultimately expanded across the country, having stops in Salt Lake, St. Louis, and New Jersey, all based off the convergence of information, partnerships, and the ability to move forward on that information. That's what I'm bringing to the table. Hope you get a chance to talk to all of you, and that's me.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. And as you see, that he brings a lot of experience, so we're happy to have him. So once again, his areas are program design, collaboration, and workforce intelligence if you're interested in arranging an appointment with him. So next up is Rodney Bradshaw, and Rodney is the director of the Gulf Coast Workforce Board, serving in Houston and the island of Galveston region. And what's that?
The entire island.
That's right. That's right. And Rodney's expertise is in strategy, communications, and engagement. So once again, I had a chance to meet Rodney at the NOB conference and interview him, and I know that we're happy to have him on board because he brings a great deal of experience from his work down there in the Houston-Galveston area. So thanks, Rodney, and take it away.
Thanks, Ahmad. I think I'll spend my 4 or 5 minutes just kind of telling the story of what we've done here in the Houston-Galveston region, and tell you that a few years ago we combined several geographic areas to try to build a regional area under the WIA that will let us serve all the employers and all the residents in the labor market area. And we were able to do that, and that involved consolidation of previous workforce areas. So we thought it just didn't make sense if you're trying to build a local system to have a board serving the city of Houston, a board serving Harris County, another board serving the county surrounding Harris County. It just didn't work well for employers or for job seekers. So we were able to do a little consolidation there. It was a challenge to us because our board started with really the members of the old boards who brought their own prejudices and biases into it, and we had to find a new way of doing business. And part of it has worked really well. We've learned some things that worked well, and we've learned some things that didn't work for us, and I'll just try to touch on a few of those during these next few minutes. The big thing that we learned was if you get a strategic plan right, it's really very powerful. And we needed that, and we were able to get it semi-right, I think. We ended up with like a 5 or 6 page document that really guides the decisions of our board and the decisions of our system. Our workforce board meetings are built around that strategic plan. We try to structure our board agendas so that it's responsive to the strategic planned issues. And the big thing was, I believe we were semi-successful in getting that board to take ownership for trying to build a local system. And that was a change for us because our success in the past had been defined by meeting state and federal standards. And by having the board go through this process and adopting its own standards, its own goals, its own measures, and clocking ourselves against that, and then also keeping the board informed as to any instances where we may fall behind on any sort of compliance requirements on meeting state and federal standards. We, of course, have to talk about that and tell them what we're doing to correct it. But the key thing is, if we can get our local board members to take ownership and responsibility, then they bring an interest to and involvement in trying to build a local system. We started out with a supply and demand model. Supply side was services to residents, set up through about 28 offices around the region operated by multiple contractors. On the demand side, we set up an employer services unit, and they're responsible to employers and for employers. Both of those, each of those sides have different measures that guide and judge your success. So we've got different measures for what happens in the center, obviously, from the measures that happen on the employer services side. What we did a little different also was talking about trying to target services to the best industries in our region, and we define that as simply saying we try to identify the industries that we thought would give us the biggest bang for the buck, and we're looking for simply above-average growth and above-average wages. And we find those industries, we're interested in talking to you. Our model calls for us to identify representative employers from those industries, and that's what we don't want to try to gather all the employers. We don't need all the employers. What we need are representative employers. So if we meet the needs of those representative employers, we're meeting the needs of all the employers in the industry, hopefully. The key to it, we found, is trying to find the right convener. And where we'd made some mistakes in the past is thinking that it had to be someone associated with the work we were doing on a day-to-day basis to be the convener, that is us or one of our partners. And what we found was more successful for us was finding other conveners out in the community. So a quick example of that may be, in the case of our health services work, we went over and found a fellow who's a prominent oil man in the Houston community, prominent in downtown business affairs, named Rob Mosbacher. And Rob was able to call the CEOs of hospital systems and get their commitment to working in our employer group. And that paid huge dividends for us in that industry. In the case of the energy industry, we went with the American Petroleum Institute, because when those guys come to town, all of the major league employers in that industry come to their meetings. So what we did is essentially attach to those, in some cases, other groups, and we were able to bring value, and they found value in our participating with them. So just a thing that we learned was that we do not have to call all the meetings, that there's other people that are better at attracting the right employers. What we also found was that early on we didn't want to pollute, for lack of a better word, the process by laying out what resources we control as the workforce board. What we wanted to do was talk to employers, and employers only, about their problems and let them identify to and for us their solutions. So what I've done in the past, for example, would get in front of a group of employers and tell them about the resources we control. Here's the services we offer. Here's the dollars we have, and so on. And what we find is that that is limiting to us. If we let those employers talk to us and they can reach agreement among that group of representative employers what their real issues are, and they identify how they want to go about solving it, and we follow that instead of trying to lead them, which is the mistake we had made for so long, was that we really started talking about a much bigger, broader response and feeding into this whole idea of responding as a system instead of programs. So anyway, we were maybe late to the party, but we finally figured that out. It's important to keep the other people out of the room. Where we saw some instances where there was a grand meeting and they brought in employers and they brought in schools and they brought in people in our system. And what we find is that corrupts our process somewhat. What tends to happen is people, and let me just use this as an example. If I'm in the education business and I go in and I listen to a group of employers talking about skill shortages, then I might say that I can contribute a solution that is oriented around my line of business, education. What I find is if I let the employers articulate what they think the solution is, and then bring in the other parties, which almost always involves education and training and the same other people. But what we don't want to do is compromise that discussion early on. So early on in meeting with these employers, it's employers only. Jim Collins talks about getting the right people on the bus. It's that sort of thing, but it's also keeping the wrong people off the bus until the right time. They all come in, but let's bring them in at the right time. We ask for employers to confirm the labor market data that we bring to those first meetings. We say, here's how we identified this industry. It looked like skill shortages. Here's the numbers we have. What do you have? And what we find is sometimes, every time, they've got different information than we have, and we want to go with their better information. What we want to deal with is direct employer participation and responses about what their needs are. Another key for us, I think, was not having formal associations. We keep our industry groups informal. There's no bylaws, there's no officers. It's people coming in because they're interested in being there, and if we're not talking about things they want to talk about, then they'll stop coming, and that's fine. We don't want them around the room if it's not meeting their needs. Rob just talked about labor market information. I just want to say a word about that. When we get close to these employers and we've got them around the table and we learn pretty well what their needs are, we have access to good labor market information. What we found is it also works for us in repackaging that information and getting it out to the broader community. So what we've ended up with is routine information going out to all of our high schools in the region. We've also developed information for all of the grade schools, and we have 78 independent school districts in this 12,000 square miles that we're serving, 78 independent school districts, and I don't know how many schools now. And we've developed packages for grades 1 through 6. And what we found is the schools are very receptive to receiving that, to introduce the idea of careers to young people. We're also coming in from the high school age down, talking about the jobs that are there today and the jobs that we think are going to be there tomorrow that will result in good careers and good opportunities for young people now. I think I'm out of time, so I better kick it back to you, Ahmad.
Great. Thanks, Rodney. We're really looking forward to engaging you on this project. Just lots of great experience that you bring to this. So I guess we're almost at the halfway mark in terms of maybe a little bit over the halfway mark, and I just want to thank everyone for hanging in there with us. I know that there's just a lot of great information that's being shared. I think we're doing pretty good on time. However, I just want to just provide a note for our speakers that on the right-hand side there's a timer there, so you have a chance to take a look at it and see how much time you have left. I think there's a 1-minute sign that will pop up for you as a reminder. Anyhow, so we have here, and I want to welcome David Hunn, who's the President and CEO of SkillSource Group and the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia WIB. And David's assigned areas of expertise are strategy, program design, and collaboration. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Ahmad. Very similar to Rodney, I offer a local workforce board perspective. I've been in my current position since 2002 for the past 11 years, but I've also been in this business since 1987 in the Job Training Partnership Act, so I believe I know the intricacies of local workforce board activities, state relationships, and federal oversight fairly well. Our workforce area is in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. We represent 3 of the fastest growing counties in our state, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William counties. Just under 2 million residents and tens of thousands of businesses, both large, very large, and also very small. You can learn more about us on our website, and I had provided the link in prior information. I think what sets us apart uniquely as a local workforce area is that our private sector board has specifically targeted business employer engagement as one of our key strategies. We really look at private employers as the primary board customer in addition to the job seeker, but we believe that if we do the first job right, finding jobs for the job seeker will be that much further along the process. In our 11 years here, we've really made some targeted successes in veterans employment. We've developed an entrepreneurship project from labor funds under the GATE project and now under the Workforce Innovation Fund. We have become an employment network through the Social Security Administration, employing disabled adults. And we've really tried to be a leader in offender reentry projects, even to the point of placing a one-stop center in the local jail, which is the largest jail in the state of Virginia. You can learn more about us as well as our business services. We have a guide that we use when we meet with local employers about the free services that we can offer. That's also up on our website, and you can find that through the link that was provided. Similarly to Houston, we also target industries. We have the five to six largest companies and businesses that we would reach out to, including information technology, healthcare, retail, business services, and even in our area, government, both at the federal, state, and local areas. In prior years, construction had been one of our targeted industries. It's of course fallen back. It's reemerging now and is growing quite rapidly. We've also been known for really targeted partnerships with industries, including healthcare. We've got a Jobs for the Future survey and study undergoing right now, along with our outreach around technology employers. What I can bring to the table, I think, are two things that you might want to consider. One is we've really focused on return on investment for our strategies to local business partners. In fact, every year we bring in a third-party economist to really prepare a return on investment study about how we've used our public resources and what that has done for the local regional economy. This past year has shown a 6-to-1 return on investment for every public dollar invested. Secondarily, I would say that my work at the local level has really enlightened me about what role state leadership and support is critical for local workforce partnerships. States can either be a catalyst or a barrier to a local workforce area, and I believe that relationship is absolutely key between state and local leaders, state and local officials, to really be able to empower the work at the local level. I'll stop there, Ahmad, and turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you, David. So just like earlier with NOB, our next speakers, we actually get two from one organization, two highly skilled individuals from one organization. So we have Lisa Katz, who's the Executive Director, and then we have Rebecca Cohen, the Director of Policy and Research for the Workforce Intelligence Network in the great state of Michigan, in the southeast Michigan. And their assigned areas for Rebecca is workforce intelligence, measuring effectiveness and collaboration. And for Lisa Katz, we have workforce intelligence, measuring effectiveness, and once again, collaboration. So Rebecca and Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Ahmad. This is Rebecca Cohen. Thank you, Ahmad, and the whole SDR team for having us on this call. Actually, Lisa sends her regrets. She's not climbing a mountain in the same way that Tim is. She's actually next door convening a bunch of economic development, workforce, and education partners for regional grant opportunities. So it's not quite the same kind of mountain, but we do hope she comes back alive also. So anyway, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the Workforce Intelligence Network has been doing. We are a new initiative that publicly was launched November 2011 through a regional grant opportunity with a regional collaboration of foundations. But we really got started that January, and we're fully staffed January, February of 2012. So just over a year and a half. And really the collaboration, we cover a very large region in southeast Michigan, 9 counties. And we came together with the 7 Michigan works agencies. Those are the workforce investment agencies. And 8 community colleges in that area came together and sought that grant funding from the foundation. They came together with the premise that talent development really is economic development. And for our region to thrive, this 9-county area that includes Detroit, Flint, Ann Arbor, as well as rural areas all around those major metropolitan areas, to have it thrive, we really need to focus on talent development. In that area, we have 5 million people and approximately 105,000 business establishments. And we really are a labor shed. We've done some research on a publicly available tool through the U.S. Census Bureau called On the Map that shows that 85% of the workers who live in those 9 counties also work in those 9 counties. So it's important that we're looking at our talent regionally. Employers have regional needs. They're not, much like some of the other speakers, employers aren't going to only look at one county. People who are trained in one county may work for an employer in another county. So we're looking at our talent on a regional level. And our mission is to create a comprehensive and cohesive workforce development system that provides employers with the talent they need for success. So we are focused on employers. We're data-driven and employer-led. We have three main goals that we came up with. The first was around labor market intelligence. Our partners, our board members, which are the community colleges, and the executive directors of the Michigan Works Agencies, quickly figured out that the intelligence and the labor market information that they had just wasn't sufficient. Particularly coming out of the recession, we really didn't have a clear idea of what was going on in our economy. So we used several different data tools to formulate this intelligence. One of the big ones that we do is real-time labor market intelligence, which aggregates online job postings to understand labor market demand. But we also use some tools to understand supply, and of course publicly available tools from the state and federal government to really get at employment, unemployment, labor force, and those types of things. And then together we create intelligence around that to help our partners invest in training and other opportunities that will benefit the economy. An example we really like to use is for the CNC machinist, which is really big in our area for manufacturing. It's metal and plastic workers, and they use these big machines. But all of the old data, all the traditional labor market information was telling us that coming out of the recession, employers didn't need machinists anymore. And so our colleges and our training, we're actually disinvesting in this kind of training and in the infrastructure to provide that training. Even though employers were telling our institutions that they needed these workers. Well, when we looked at the real-time data, we saw significant gains in demand through 2011, but 2010 and 2011 coming out of the recession, but we really needed the quantity of data behind it to inform those decisions. So this is a major part of what we do, and it's not only providing and being the experts in the region around labor market intelligence, but it's building the capacity of our institutions to do that labor market intelligence themselves. So we do a lot of things around network. We convene learning networks, and we help them get the tools that they need to be able to do these kind of analyses. The other way that we look at intelligence that's a little bit different is we center it around occupations rather than industry clusters. And this is because employers are really focused on skills, which make up occupations, rather than industries. I'm going to move on. We have a lot more to talk. I'm the data person, so I have a lot to talk about data, but I'll move on to the employer strategies, which we look at employers with regional needs. So we're not duplicating the efforts of our local boards, but we're there to augment what they're doing. And we are convening employers in three clusters. And advanced manufacturing is the greatest wealth-producing industry in our area. Information technology is the fastest growing occupation cluster in our area, driven by many different industries, not just our core IT firms. And healthcare is our largest employer industry in our region. And these are employer-led clusters where we, like others, vet the information, the data that we collect. We bring in the training partners like Rodney at the appropriate times, not necessarily off the bat, so they can tell us what they need. But like some of the others, we're able to help work with that co-opetition. And the healthcare executives for our major healthcare systems are coming to us, and they actually want us to help with their workforce planning. The third area that we have is around public policy. So we do institutional, state, regional policy, working on career pathways projects, K-12, STEM awareness, and like I said, building capacity within our institutions to use real-time data. So we have a lot of new things going on, and I think I'm out of time, so I'm going to stop with that. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for coming on board for this project. Really looking forward to you sharing your experience and some of the work that you're doing up there in Michigan. So last, we have our last SMEs is Spencer Critchley, and Spencer is a journalist, storyteller, technologist, and the managing director of Boots Road. And Spencer, his assigned areas of expertise is communications and engagement collaboration. Spencer, welcome.
Thanks very much. Hello, everybody. So I'll tell you about Boots Road. Boots Road Group is a full-service digital marketing agency for people who are making the world a better place. We provide branding, advertising, public relations, and digital media services. And under digital media, we include web development, social media, and application development. Our clients include both of President Obama's presidential election campaigns, Congressman Sam Farr, the U.S. Department of Labor, University of California at Berkeley, Monterey Institute of International Studies, the cities of Salinas and Santa Cruz, California, and a list of others. And you can find those on our website at bootsroad.com. So in addition to working horizontally across disciplines like advertising, public relations, and web development, we also work vertically from the technical layer of doing things like configuring and managing our own web servers in the cloud to the strategic and creative layers of branding and beautiful visual design. And that covers a lot, but the point of us having knowledge in all those areas is to turn complexity into simplicity for our clients and for the people they serve. We agree with the great jazz musician Charles Mingus, making the simple complicated is commonplace, making the complicated simple, awesomely simple, that's creative. Another way we put that is one message, all media. We focus on finding the simple, powerful message at the core of what you're doing, and then use that core message to unify all your communications. We encourage clients to see their communications as a digital ecosystem with the core message at the center. The message unifies it all, whether you're using the web, social media, email, video, print, or all of them. As part of this, we emphasize the difference between information and influence. Effective communication influences people's beliefs and behaviors. You're communicating because you want a group of people to believe a certain thing, such as that your service would be valuable to them, and because you want them to behave a certain way, such as signing up for your service. Information by itself is not influential because people's beliefs and behaviors are based on emotion. Influential communication connects with the emotions of a particular target audience. So, for example, telling someone you have information about the workforce may not be very motivating in itself. Telling them you're going to help them reduce hiring and turnover costs may get more to an emotion that influences them to act. And the summary version of this is the characteristics of an influential message are that it is emotional, simple, targeted, and repeated. And now I'm going to say a word about social media. When we're consulting on social media, we help clients see how it's different from previous forms of media and how that means you should change the way you think about it and use it compared to the way you use traditional media. In particular, traditional media comes from a world where it was difficult and expensive to publish content. So content was published one to many. It was an announcement model. If you were a media publisher or had access to a media publisher, you could command the attention of a large audience and announce your content to them. But that doesn't work on social media because it comes from a new world in which publishing is easy and essentially free. So now we have a many-to-many model. Everyone is not just consuming media the way they used to. They're also creating and sharing it on their own, so everybody is in effect also a publisher. And there's no way to command them all to pay attention to you and announce things to them. And yet you often see people using social media in a one-to-many way from the old days. For example, by posting press releases, flyers, or ads, or other promotional material on Facebook, as if people will come to their Facebook page and pay attention, like they all used to when they saw flyers posted on the bulletin board at the town post office, for example, or if they saw an ad in the single daily newspaper that they subscribe to. But that doesn't work in social media. In social media, the power has moved to the network and to the content itself. It must be content that people will want to share, not what you tell them to share. So you succeed not by announcing or promoting, but by building a network of trusted connections and offering valuable content, meaning content that is either useful or entertaining to the people you're trying to reach. Then your content will spread via the power of the network that you've built. And the benefit to you is that the content will be relevant to your main message and it carries links back to you. So that's a quick summary of what we do at Boost Road Group, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about that when we get to the questions and answers.
Great. Thank you, Spencer. So as you all could see, that we are loaded with talent and expertise for the next month. And the great news is that Spencer will be, you heard some of the great information that he'll be bringing to this particular project. And the good news is that we will have him during the month of June for a workshop as well that Christian will talk about, that she mentioned, and we'll be telling you a little bit more about as we move forward. So we're looking at the screens here, and we see lots of great comments and questions, and I think this is not a better time. There's not a better time than to turn this over to Kristen so that she could curate and bring some of these questions forward for our SMEs. Here you go, Kristen.
Hi, everybody. Just to let you know, we are going to run about 5 minutes late. We've just been having a side chat here to figure out whether we should go ahead and ask questions. And as long as we have everybody assembled, we'd really like to do it. So just so you know, we're going to run about 5 or 10 minutes late. If you are not able to stay, that's okay. Go ahead and hang up. You'll get the recording. You'll also get the notes, and we'll communicate any other information you want to know. So let's just jump right to questions. The first question here is for Josh, and remember we have a minute per question. So there's Josh's question. Josh, what one example would you recommend we look at in Workforce Investment Works to help us with employer engagement, or 2 or 3 if you can do it in a minute?
I don't know if I can do 2 or 3 in 60 seconds. What I can do in 60 seconds is I can say, go to workforceinvestmentworks.com, click on the button on the far left-hand side that says Why Workforce Investment. We have about 25 videos there. I would say about half of which are all directly related to how your colleagues across the country have provided services to directly support business and industry. Without going into too much detail, and as I think about some of the really cool things we've seen and that I know are housed on Workforce Investment Works, look at Maryland. Frederick County Workforce Services in Maryland can put on a campaign called One Job at a Time, where they actually reached out to their employer community. And with the commitment of that employer community, they created 1,600 new jobs for 600 employers. Each one of those jobs was filled by a Frederick County employer or a company that hired a Frederick County resident. 2 others really quickly, Pennsylvania. Look at the Mechatronics partnership that was done with the Reading Area Community College, Lancaster County Workforce Investment Board, and the Berks County Workforce Investment Board, where they actually worked with employers to help design customized mechatronics programs in tandem with the boards and the community college. The other one I'd look at is Dallas-Fort Worth, who convened a regional aerospace cluster with some of their large employers. That included Lockheed Martin, Bell Helicopter, Vaughn Aircraft, and actually worked with those employers to develop customized training, develop career academies that actually help provide the kind of skills that industry saw that they had a growing need for. So again, it's hard to do that in 60 seconds. There's 2,500 stories and innovations on the site. I'd encourage you just to kind of explore it. Again, the site's heavily geared towards how the system is serving business needs and is acting in a market-driven fashion. So I'd encourage you to check it out. And again, join Tim and I in the call, and we can dive really deep into some of these examples.
Thanks a lot, Josh. Now I'm going to move Melanie's question in here. There you go. Melanie, what's the difference between business services and employer services?
Oh, thanks, Kristen. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I have some background noise. I mean, I think at its core it may seem like a semantic issue, but for me, with the kind of a practitioner and marketing background, I think how we talk about our services, what we call them, how we position is important. So for me, all of what we do is business services, and a subgroup of what we do is employer services. And the distinctions are essentially employer services is that package of activities related to helping employers with recruiting and hiring. So it's the publishing of job classified ads and the matching and all kind of that functionality that typically happens in career centers. And business services for me are typically, I'm speaking of something more global, sector strategies and real being involved in the cycle of workforce development, connecting workforce development to economic development, being driven by data in order to be strategic about the kinds of business services you want to offer or expand and offer. So it's one of the reasons I bring it up, for example, when I'm talking about it in training, is that if we only talk about ourselves using the term employer services, I think we may send a message that limits the communication about how expansive and what greater reach we have in terms of the full realm of workforce development that states, boards, and local agencies and providers are involved in. So I hope that answers the question.
That's super. Thank you so much, Melanie.
You're welcome.
So we have, Rob Gamble has lost his phone line, and so we have sent his message in chat, and we'll put his question right here, and we'll just leave it here on the screen. And then, Rob, we'll invite you to go ahead and chat your response, and then we'll capture it so everybody can see it as it goes up, and then, of course, we'll capture it and send it around to people after the call. So if you go ahead and do that, in the meantime, I will move Rodney's question in here. Rodney, other than the strategic plan, what were the key steps you took in driving the consolidation of boards?
Talking to business, I think, helped us more than anything else we did, bring the political side in. There was opposition to consolidation, but as we spent time on it, virtually all of the opposition came from organizations and people that were vested in the current system. And so we started talking to a little broader group. And by that I mean I stood in front of chambers and commerce and talked to elected officials, talked to Rotary clubs at their breakfast meetings. We did a lot of talking for probably 18 months on what we saw as the advantages to a consolidated approach to building a local system. And over time, we were able to get some of the key political leaders to be willing to take a chance and willing to sign on. We made promises that we could probably keep everyone that was currently working in the system, that there was room for them. Those roles might be different, responsibilities and so on, but we needed good organizations and we needed good people if we do this realignment. But really we were talking about people that were afraid of the big city taking resources away from outlying areas. We were talking about people from outlying areas being afraid of the big city taking them or going the other way, that the city would be afraid that the outlying areas would dilute their resources. When we started talking about the practicalities, what we saw was job opportunities that people could not access if we didn't look at the region as an entire labor market. We talked about employers that would not work with us unless they could attract people from around the region. That's where they were hiring from. There's no point in dealing with 3 or 4 local systems. They won't go to the trouble. It won't happen. We can do better. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what enabled us to do the consolidation, I think.
Well, thanks so much, Rodney. Now I'm going to move David's question in here. David, you already provided us with the link, thank you, to the ROI study. But can you just give us a quick 60-second summary of how you approached it?
Of course. So as I mentioned when we spoke earlier, SkillSource hires a third-party economist each year. And what we have used over the past several years is the IMPLAN data, and that's spelled I-M-P-L-A-N. And many of you who are working with local economic developers know that that has been a very popular economic modeling software that is used when companies are looking to move into a particular region. And so our metrics that we used were the number of individuals, typically adults, that were placed into jobs during the course of a fiscal year, the average salary that they were recorded at, and then it's simply a simple IMPLAN software calculation that then measures the overall economic impact that those individuals that are now spending money in the community, what that has as far as the gross economic impact, and then the secondary impact as those dollars are then spent by those accepting those dollars. And so there's multiple different levels of how that dollar is spent in a region or in a local community. That all then is computed into a return on investment using the dollars that we have spent, typically federal, state, local, and contribution dollars on behalf of all of our services. Hence, you get the return on investment. I believe that same strategy can be applied in a number of different ways, but that is, of course, a very accepted and what we think is a very conservative method. And I'll turn it back to you, Kristen.
Thanks so much, David. And just so people know, Rob did go ahead and respond in the left side of the screen in the chat box there. And, of course, we'll send that out in the summary afterwards as we do. So now we're moving on to Rebecca. Rebecca, here is your question. What are some of the specific ways you build capacity of partners to do LMI themselves?
Okay, thank you. Well, I mentioned we're pretty young, so I would characterize, what we did with around real-time data and all of our data tools was in 2012, we have a board subcommittee around data, and together with our board subcommittee, we investigated the suite of tools that we'd want to use. So first identifying which tools would be most useful, and also really identifying a regional way that we were going to look at data. We defined our own occupational clusters, and that's shared now throughout the region. So we have a consistent way of doing things at all the local levels. I mean, they certainly can do their own, but we were a guiding hand in how to define a lot of these. Definition is really important, so how to define a lot of this data. And then really starting in 2013, we started coming out with some regional and local data products. So we have a State of the Region's Workforce Report. We now have ongoing quarterly workforce indicators using the real-time data and other data as well. But really now we're trying to help people throughout those organizations understand what the data means to be able to make decisions based off of it, but also pull some of their own data. So we were instrumental in negotiating contracts for some of the regional contracts for some of the proprietary data at a much reduced cost for our local areas. And then we convened one-on-one trainings with them, group trainings. We have user groups so people can learn from each other. And because we have the colleges and the Michigan Works Agencies, the WIBs, together, there's different levels of data expertise within those organizations. But having those the data users from the colleges who are required to use data, the data researchers who are at the colleges at the table, it was eye-opening to have them come together and how they could leverage each other's expertise as well. So it's all about learning networks in terms of building that capacity.
Super. Thanks so much, Rebecca. And finally, Spencer, your question is, can you provide a before and after example of a complex message turned to a simple one with your help?
Sure. If you go to our website at bootsroad.com, and that's BOOTSROAD.com, and if you scroll down to case studies, you'll see a picture of an African American holding a picture of a child, and it says CASA, first the name, so anybody who's able to do that. This is an example of doing just that. This is a client whose name was Court Appointed Special Advocates. And what they do is help children in the foster care system. But they're aware they have a branding and messaging problem because their name is confusing, Court Appointed Special Advocates. It's hard to tell what exactly that means, and you don't get the idea that they're actually helping foster children. And they have a really important mission because they are often the only people who are speaking up for and looking out for the interests of those children all the way through the process. These children deal with lawyers and judges and social workers and psychologists, but each of those professionals tends to just focus on their particular area. And what a CASA advocate does is stick by the child all the way through and let them have somebody consistent to lean on and give them support. And they end up making a huge difference in these children's lives. So court-appointed special advocates really does not capture that. And it's a classic case of giving information and not having much influence and having very little emotional content and no simplicity. It's also a problem that the short form is CASA because that's Spanish for house. And there are a lot of Spanish-speaking people in Monterey County where we were dealing with this, and it was confusing to them because they thought maybe this nonprofit had something to do with housing. So we consulted with CASA for a few months, and in particular focused on an intensive, what we call design charrette, which lasted an afternoon, where we sat with all the key people at CASA and made sure that we understood the story of the organization and the story of the volunteers and staff and what it was that was really powerful about this work, why it really mattered to them and why it mattered to their clients. And what we ended up arriving at was that what these people really were voices for children. And in fact, advocate, the Latin derivation of advocate, is to call to your aid, and that also sort of reinforced our sense that really what these people do is speak for children. So we suggested to them that they rename themselves Voices for Children and that we develop a new logo for them. Their previous logo did not really express much of anything about what they were doing. It was sort of a pleasant, attractive logo, but it was not particularly specific to their organization and not particularly powerful. So if you look at the arrow, the red arrow to the right of the main image, if you're on this web page, you can scroll across the pages of this case study, and that will show you the before and after of the logo. You see the CASA logo before, which shows a figure with a sort of a heart being formed above their arms, which, is perfectly fine, but doesn't have all that much to do with their particular mission. And then the new logo of Voices for Children, which expresses emotions that are more directly related to what they're doing. The large curve is sheltering the word voices and sheltering two smaller curves, for example, the same way an advocate looks out for children in his or her care. And the word voices is written in a very personally expressive font as opposed to the other fonts. And it's all resting on a stable platform. And there's a lot more I could say about the logo, and I don't think there's enough time in the time we have. You can continue to scroll across. If you hit the right arrow again, you'll see the before and after of the website. The previous website was full of text. It was presenting a ton of information, but there was no easy way in for a visitor, and there was no real emotional connection being established. Whereas if you see the main page of the new website, you see there's an image of a child front and center, and it's greatly simplified, and it's much more focused on the key stories about what they're doing and really getting to the emotional point of all of this. So given that their objectives were that they wanted to increase volunteerism, they wanted more people to volunteer to be advocates, and they wanted to increase donations, this really served that mission very well, and they've reported to us in the, I think it's roughly a year since we did this, that they really have seen an important difference in both of those things.
Thanks so much, Spencer, and thank you to all the SMEs. We're going to switch modes now and talk a little bit about some grants management issues. So have a fantastic rest of your day, and we will be in touch shortly.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care, everybody. So we'll let the SMEs get off the line here for a second, and we're going to switch the order a little bit because DOL has a call coming up next, and so we're going to skip ahead a few slides. We're trying. And so we'll just go ahead and let DOL cover their materials right now, and then we'll come back to the signing up for appointments and connecting with your SMEs. So go ahead, DOL. I can't seem to get the slide to switch over, but just go ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kristen. This is Jonathan, and like Kristen said, we just have a couple really quick things regarding your grants and the rest of the initiative we want to present to you. First, some really good news. Our Expanding Business Engagement website has now gone live. It's updated. It's got new materials on it. You can find that at businessengagement.workforce31.org, and then click on the EBETA Initiative tab. There you'll find all the webinars we've had. We'll find the link to the companion guide and framework, to the new facilitators tool set and guide that we've been talking about presenting to your team so that you can have your own in-person meetings. There's also readiness assessments and checklists, sample agendas, and links to all sorts of other valuable tools that you can find on business engagement throughout that site. So we really encourage you to go and visit that. That literally went online about 15 minutes ago, so it's exciting news for us. We'll also try next week send out a little bit more detailed information on that so you have the link in your mailbox. But go ahead and check that out if you have time today. And then just as a reminder, this week on the 15th, your quarterly program narratives and financial reports, 9130s, were due. So if you have not yet submitted those, those are now past due, and we'll need to get those in ASAP.
Okay.
So a couple other things. Like I said, you received the memo from Jane Oates reiterating her commitment to business engagement. So we just want to encourage you to continue sharing that with your teams.
Yeah, if you haven't already, be sure that you do send it out to your teams. We have asked SPR and our regional colleagues who have this letter as well to hold off sending it out to anyone so that you guys could use it really as a tool to kind of continue the momentum forward, and also under the revised vision, and also message it the way that you guys felt was most useful. So remember to do that. Also, I know Kristen sent out, or the SPR team did last week, the chat data from the May 3rd webinar. We saw this data and we just loved it, and we really wanted to share it with you because we felt like it was another good touch point for encouraging that peer-to-peer connections from when we last had the opportunity to send you some data to do that back in December. So look at the chat data if you haven't already. We were able to see in the chat bar today that some of you were making some live peer-to-peer connections, which is really awesome. Look at the chat data. You might find some other people that you want to reach out to and connect more with on your sticky and tricky problems, or just to share successes as well. Now, also, as a follow-up to the last webinar, we know that you guys had some questions on modifications and some other things. We went through this more in depth last time, and for those of you that have specific questions, you can follow up with Jonathan or I, your FPOs. But just a reminder that with your statement of work, when you're considering whether you need to do a modification there, think about what your plan is now, and do your current plans fit within the scope of your original statement of work, the way that it's worded. Also, as far as budget modifications go, remember that all costs must be allowable and in accordance with applicable cost principles and parameters specified within the EBE grant statement of work. So Jonathan and I are available to answer more specific questions if you have them. As far as timing, the timing on those, statement of work, either letters to revise your statement of work or your new SF 424A and budget narrative is just ASAP. So if you have further questions, you can reach out to Jonathan or I. And then finally, I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone that was able to make it to the Region 3 Business Summit. It was really wonderful to get a chance to meet some of you. I hope you found it as valuable a dialogue as I did between business, the workforce system, and education at many different levels. We got a chance to hear some perspectives from business in different sectors like energy, advanced manufacturing, and aerospace, and hear from a lot of real-life examples of successful partnerships and other models that I hope that you were able to take home and share with your peers. I haven't seen the presentations come out from Winston yet, but as soon as they do, I'm sure you guys will be getting them if you attended, and otherwise I will be sharing them out with you guys more broadly. Jonathan and I will, as your FPOs, to be able to make sure that everyone is learning from those experiences. So that is our update from ETA, and Kristen, we'll hand it back over to you guys to finish up.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. And if the rest of you could just hang in there just a couple more minutes, we're going to let you know how it is that you can sign up for your SME appointments. So I'll turn it right over to Sam. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Sam with SPR, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about the SME appointments. So each of the SMEs you just heard from is expecting to spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours with 2 to 3 state teams. How you spend this time and use the SMEs that you choose will be completely up to you. For this process, we imagine that you'll be setting up a conference call or a video call, perhaps a visit if the geography allows for it, or even asking the SME to review your plans or other specific aspects of your project. So now, let me just move my slides real quickly. Right off the bat, we do want to let you know that SME availability is going to be limited, so we're encouraging every team to sign up for an appointment as soon as possible so you can get the SME that you're looking for. With a total of 21 appointment times and 13 state grantees, that means that those who choose quickly will be able to get 2 appointments with SMEs, but we've made sure that there will be enough slots for each state team to be at least able to reserve 1 appointment time. So right now I'm going to walk you through how to sign up for your SME using Doodle, which is a very user-friendly website. I realize that many of you may have used Doodle before, but for those of you who have not, I'm going to give everyone a really basic walkthrough. After this webinar, we're going to be sending you all 2 links to our Doodle surveys where you'll be able to register for up to 2 SME appointments. The survey will look just like the screenshot that you see on this side. At the top of the survey, you will see the SME name with the days that they will be available to set up a time to meet with you. Now, if you look below their name, you'll see a green box with a check mark on it. If you see this, that means that day has been chosen by another team and is no longer available. To claim an appointment time, you just simply need to write the name of your state team in this area here. Once you have done that, you'll be able to select an appointment time as long as it has not been chosen already. Now, if you open a link and you don't see the SME that you're looking for, it just means that it's on the other link we're sending. So once you choose your times, go ahead and click Save. After you do that, you'll see a screen asking for additional information. This is just your email. Please put this in as soon as you do and you click Save. I'll be alerted that you've chosen this time and I can get you in direct contact with your SME. So with that, we just want to let you know as well that as with everything we've done in this project so far, we are capturing this information and the value that comes from these interactions. This is going to be very important both for yourselves and for the benefit of this project, your colleagues, and the future grantees that will learn from this process. So we will be asking you to document your interactions with SMEs. We don't envision this will be too extensive of a process. It could be bullet points from your meeting, a recording of the video call, some large takeaways or lessons learned from the meeting. And this way we have something to share with all the other grantees and we can track this. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Ahmad.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Thank you very much. Also want to thank the DOL team, Jonathan and Megan. Also, once again, our SPR team with Trace and Sam and Kristen and Vince. This was a great 90 minutes, and I think we shared a lot of great questions, a lot of great comments. And so, as Kristen and Sam noted, we will be sending you information about how to connect to your SMEs, invitations to the June event, and also contacting you about sharing tools and resources in the coming days and weeks. And we really just appreciate your participation in this final stage of the project. So I'm going to turn this, well, I'm not going to turn it, I forgot that DOA had a chance to present their information. So I just want to say thank you very much. And Kristen, if there's any additional information that you would want to add, please do so. Otherwise, I just want to...
I just want to thank everybody. We have so much rich information in chat this time that it might take us a little longer than usual to kind of aggregate it, but it's fantastic. So thanks so much.
Okay. And the last thing I would like to just add, so on, when we started, you saw my contact information, Kristen's, and Sam's. So please feel free to contact us as it relates to questions that are relevant to this process. So Sam, we say Sam also because he's done a lot of great work around putting together this doodle, as well as developing the framework and the platform for the appointments. And so he has the best information on how to kind of troubleshoot any issue or challenges that come up during the process, which we don't expect, but we would just want to make ourselves available. So have a great weekend, and thank you, and we look forward to the next month with you. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.